Dark Souls, but if I kill an enemy, then I become it. Dark Souls is known for its iconic bosses, but the enemies in this game don't get enough love. So today, I'm going to be taking control of them and using them to try to beat the game. The rules of this challenge are simple. If I kill an enemy, then I must become it. And this video won't end until I've defeated Gwen or lost my humanity. And right now I'm playing as a Hollow. What's going on, guys? AC here, and the rent is due. I missed you. What'd you think I said? All jokes aside, it took me a long time to get this mod working, but I'm so glad that I did because this might be my favorite challenge I've ever done. As I said in the intro, the rules of this one are simple. If I beat an enemy, then I must become it. The catch is that this does not apply to bosses, only enemies. Otherwise, this wouldn't really be a challenge. I do have a plan, and I'll tell you what that is after we escape the asylum. If we escape the asylum. I'm just gonna go around this time. Honestly, guys, I have no idea how we're gonna beat this demon. We obviously have to kill it before we can leave the asylum. I don't think we're gonna be able to plunge attack either. Actually, I have an idea. We can't beat him up close, but I might be able to snipe him. Yeah, instead of plunge attacking, I'm just gonna stay up top and try to cheese him or something. Okay, I just need to be really careful here. Jesus Christ. I know this looks bad, but we can still do this. All right, new plan. I remember there's a secret weapon in this room over here. This guy. God damn it. There we go. I really hope this works. I was not sure if we'd be able to block him or not. And there it is. The demon goes down. Not gonna lie, I thought this video was over. Hold on a second. When did that get there? This video is sponsored by Display, and in just 20 seconds, you too can turn your undead asylum into a home. Displays are metal posters, and after a month on my wall, mine still look brand new. If Dark Souls isn't your cup of Estus, Display also has a massive library of over 2 million artworks for you to choose from. That's 200 plus licensed brands, 40,000 independent artists, or even a custom print of your own. So whether you want Vati's Convergence poster or my personal favorite, his Guardians of Moonlight poster, you can get them printed on high quality metal and hang them up on your wall easily using nothing more than the tool-free magnet kit that comes in the box. No drills, no holes, no tools. If you want to splurge a bit, Display also has Textra, which really pushes the boundaries of what a metal poster can be. It's 3D printed textures with matte and gloss finishes that you can actually feel. For a limited time only, you can get 22% off one display, 27% off two, and 33% off when you grab 3 or more using my link in the description below. Every order directly supports the channel, and thanks again to Display for sponsoring this video. The Berg is where enemies stop lining up politely and start working in packs, which is basically a nightmare for a body this frail. In practice, I had the same jumping attack they did, but mine came with better timing. I pulled them apart one at a time, punished every whiff, and cleared the entire street without much trouble. The shield hollows by the tower were probably the only real scare, since every block they landed was free chip damage. Eventually they went down too though, and the road to the tower was open. Up that tower was the Taurus demon, and I'd already done the math on him. His hammer's got an AoE that goes straight through shields, and his body wasn't gonna survive more than 2 hits. That meant I had to go shopping for something better, and there was only one enemy in this area that could do it, the Black Knight. I picked this guy for 2 reasons. One, he's got late game stats in an early game area, and even the wiki tells you to push him off a cliff instead of trying to fight him. The second is that his sword does bonus damage to demons, which is exactly what's waiting for us at the top of the tower. He guards the hallway next to it, daring someone crazy enough to fight him, and today that crazy person was gonna be me. I thought this would be a lot easier than it was. Even with the shield, he broke my guard in a single swing and then deleted me with the next one. My first try lasted about 4 seconds, but fortunately dying doesn't end this run. It's just a bonfire respawn. And I also end up keeping whatever body I died in, meaning the only thing I really lost in that fight was my pride. My second try went better right up until it didn't. My hit landed for about 166, but he just wouldn't de-aggro. And what followed next was a full Dead by Daylight coded chase around the entire map. Some of you might not know this, but enemies leash back to their posts when the AI gives up on the chase. Apparently the Black Knight never got that memo, so he followed me all the way to the bonfire. When I reached the stairs, I looked down at him and tried sneaking past him, and then he killed me immediately. That chase taught me something useful though. The tower stairs are basically a wall for his AI. If I poked him and then ran up those stairs, then he would just walk home every single time. Every cycle took about a minute, so I made myself a coffee in between attacks and got comfortable. 3 cycles later, the strongest enemy in the Berg was ours, and after 40 40 minutes of cheese, I regret absolutely nothing. With the Black Knight secured, it was finally time to take on the demon. This fight went just about as well as it could have. His hammer attacks bounced off of my poise, and then he started running away from me. And I honestly couldn't blame him. After killing the Taurus demon, the next goal was ringing the bell of awakening. The gargoyles were definitely in trouble, but that was only if I could make it to them. Every enemy between us and the parish was a bad trade. None of these guys were stronger than the Black Knight, so if I killed a hollow, then all of that armor would just be gone, and I'd become that hollow instead, right? Even though I was the strongest thing in the area, I really couldn't fight anything. And I was determined not to, because I worked way too hard to lose this body on some trash mob. Coming up next was the Hellkite Bridge, and I made it about halfway before the dragon burned me to a crisp. Not gonna lie, I really thought I'd survive this one, especially since Black Knights have such good fire resistance, but thankfully that death only sent me back to the bonfire, so we got another chance. This time I ran over to the stairwell, ducked below the bridge, and kind of just waited for the flames to pass. The Drake was still sitting above the gate, and his next breath would cover the path behind us, so I ran underneath him, slipped past the last group of hollows, and reached the lever before he turned around. Just like that, I managed to reach the parish without having to trade for a weaker enemy in the process. Now surprisingly, the parish has 2 enemies that are actually worth stealing and about 20 that aren't, starting with an armored boar sitting in the courtyard. I almost reached the stairs before the crowd boxed me into a corner. One hollow blocked the exit and the other attacked through his back while he stood there. Round 2 needed a cleaner route, so I stayed behind the outside wall and gave the first group some room to miss. From there I only had one job, and that was to keep everyone alive and kind of lure them away from their door so I could just walk around them. Of course, the first knight followed me into the courtyard, so I looped around the columns, and by the time he started walking home, I had already slipped through his hallway. That trick carried us all the way to the church before it stopped working. Up next was the final hallway before the gargoyles, where one Balder Knight had decided that this was his staircase. His shield blocked the whole path, and killing him would force us to swap, so I had to pull him aside, circle back around, and then run upstairs before he returned. That's when I squeezed past him and ran into the church instead, which it would have worked if not for the knight that had apparently seen me, and now I had a Balder Knight behind us and a 7-foot wall of armor standing between me and the staircase. After trying pretty much everything I could think of, there was no way the Balder Knight was gonna move from around that staircase, so I didn't really have a choice. I was gonna have to trade the Black Knight for one of these other 2. I dragged him away from the church, waited for him to drop his shield, and it was time to say goodbye to the Black Knight. In his place, I became a walking wall with a tower shield. The Balder Knight had nowhere left to hide, and one overhead swing almost killed him immediately. I had one room left before the gargoyles, and it was packed with hollows. That would have been easy for the last 3 enemies. The problem is that the channeler was standing behind them, using his dance to buff everybody in the room. Normally these hollows are pretty weak, but with the buff active, every jumping attack could wipe out the Balder Knight, and killing the first one would leave me as a hollow in the middle of all his friends. So the issue we had here was clearing out the room. Walking in through the front door meant fighting 6 buffed hollows at the same time, so I didn't walk in. Instead, I stepped close enough to wake them up, then ran all the way back through the church, and the whole group took the bait. The first one chased me a little bit too far, so I baited his jump and then sidestepped the blade and cut him down before the others could reach us. Now, I was the weakest enemy in the parish. The hollow soldier has one attack worth caring about. Hold the sword behind his shoulder, release it at the right distance, and then he'd leap forward and close the gap where most enemies could react. The other hollows had the exact same move though, so every fight turned into a game of who would use it first. I kept backing through the parish using the stairs, columns, and narrow bridges to break the group apart. One hollow would sprint ahead, miss the jump, and then lose his whole health bar to mine. Then I moved back before the next one arrived. One after another, I brought them down. Every trip back to the church woke up whoever was still inside, and every bad angle threatened to put 2 swords in the same hallway. I couldn't really afford to trade, and I didn't want to rush the next pull because one mistake meant waking up at Andre and doing everything all over again. Eventually 5 hollows became 2, and then I split the final pair on the stairs, and the last one chased me into the courtyard alone. With everyone dead, I walked back upstairs as the last hollow standing, with nothing but a naked corpse and a rusted sword. It was time to find our next victim. It was gonna be the channeler, and my plan was to try to use his magic to buff myself in the upcoming gargoyle fight. When the fight started, the first spear missed, the second one hit the floor next to me, and I used the gap to trap him behind the bookcases. He tried to dance again, which was a bold choice for someone in his position. I ate one spell on the way back in and then kept swinging and dropped him before he could teleport. 1,000 souls later, and now I was holding a trident. The channeler came with 2 things nobody really respects until they need him: his dance, which could buff his own damage, and a drill attack with much more reach than it seems. We finally had what we needed to take on the gargoyles. The gargoyles are the game's first real skill check. On paper, this was a terrible matchup. I had less health than almost anything we'd used so far, and every hit that connected pretty much killed me. The moment the first one reaches half health, his partner joins in with a flamethrower, which means I need to finish the first half without getting touched. I started with a dance, then waited for the first swing and drove the trident into his tail. I tried to finish the first gargoyle before the second could attack, but a sideways swing clipped me during my windup. That marked the end of the first attempt. The second try was a little bit different. I let the gargoyle come to me instead, stayed below the halberd, and used the slope of the roof to make the tail swipe pass over my feet. That gave me one clean shot at the tail, and then another one as he turned around. And my next attack killed the gargoyle before my fire became a problem. Now that the second one was alone, I walked around the edge of the flames and lined up one more drill attack to erase his health bar. Well, the first bell rung, the next one was waiting for me in Blighttown. I had a shorter route through the back of the entrance, but I still needed to survive a maze of ladders, platforms, and enemies that could knock me into the dark. Our next goal was Quelaag. She's got a ton of HP, hits hard, and she covers the floor with lava as the fight goes on. Compared to the gargoyle fight, this almost seemed reasonable. Even as an enemy in Blighttown, the dart snipers are the biggest problem. One dart is guaranteed to toxic you, and it drains your health way faster than you can heal it. Not that we have a heal. One flame whip from a crag spider would have ended us, so I moved down the ladder one at a time and left everything alone. A few of them did turn as I passed by, but none of them got close enough to attack. Honestly, the camera gave me more trouble than the enemies did, which kind of surprised me. It kept clipping into the walls, hiding the next platform, and making each drop look twice as far as it really was. Somehow, I reached the wheel elevator without dying. Fortunately, enemies can't get poisoned by the swamp, so it was really just water with terrible lighting. I walked around the infested barbarians carrying boulders and stayed out of their line of sight to reach the bonfire without a fight. Going into this fight, I had the dance and the drill, and hopefully it would be enough to beat Quelaag. When this fight started, I moved behind her and tried to go for the drill. It worked against the gargoyles, but against Quelaag, it barely scratched her, and now I was standing right next to a giant pool of lava. The damage was bad, but it wasn't impossible, don't get me wrong. If I baited her lava spit, then I could attack her side and then escape right before the next attack came. Quelaag started charging her explosion, so I ran into the lava pool behind me, and one hit was all it took to stop the channeler long enough for the blast to finish the job. But we weren't done yet. My second attempt started with one small change. Instead of forcing the drill, I just walk toward Quelaag and then wait for her lava spit. Just like in the first attempt, her sides stay open after the spit just long enough for me to attack and leave. I danced, closed the distance, and then waited for the spider to lower its head, but she went for the sword instead, and I was already too close to escape, so I tried to get around the blade, got trapped by her, and then lost my whole health bar in just one swing. At this point, I realized the channeler could do anything as long as he had enough time, but Quelaag wasn't going to give it to us, so it was time for something different. The infested barbarian had everything the channeler was missing. His basic swings did actual damage, his running speed was surprisingly good, his rolling attack could hit a few times before carrying me past the boss. My new plan was simple. The barbarian had enough bulk to actually survive one attack, and in my next attempt, I waited for the first pull, moved around the spider, and then slammed the boulder into her back. One hit from this attack did more than the entire drill. From there, the rest of the fight became a slow game of red light, green light. Every lava pool she put out gave me an opening, and every sword wind up sent me across the arena. The real issue was that Quelaag kept covering the floor in fire, so my openings were getting further and further apart. It took a lot of patience, but eventually it paid off. After some back and forth, Quelaag left a clear line across her side, so I went for the rolling attack, and the boulder's hitbox hit her over and over again while carrying me past the spider. This attack is designed to hit a player once, and then it knocks them down, and the iframes prevent you from getting hit so many times, but because I'm using it against another enemy, each hit starts to add up. As long as the roll didn't end next to her sword or inside the lava, then I'd be able to survive. After circling the lava a bit, I waited for another spit and then punished whatever side was available. Each boulder swing brought her health lower and lower, and at least I think this is a boulder. Is this a boulder or is this dung? Regardless, I found one last opening, and the Chaos Switch Quelaag lost to a man with a rock. Welcome to Dark Souls. With Quelaag dead, we had our second Bell of Awakening. The path to Anor Londo was finally open. Our next goal was to reach the top of Sin's Fortress and defeat the Iron Golem. The Barbarian could probably win that fight, but there was no way I was going to be able to fit him or keep him through the fortress. The building is full of thin bridges and swinging axes, all designed to drop you into the pits below. And while I probably wouldn't be able to get our new hero through, there were some very promising bodies in this area. Serpent soldiers have thick armor, large shields, and enough poise to ignore weak attacks. The boulder wasn't a weak attack though, and before long I was playing as one. I ran into my twin on the bridge ahead, and neither of us had enough room to walk around the other, so we had to fight to the death. This is the perfect time to show off one of the things about this mod that I've been abusing this entire time. Every time I become a new enemy, the new body starts with full health, so that means killing the same enemy I'm playing as has a benefit too, because it works like a full heal. The soldier fit through the walkways pretty easily, and I even started to feel like I belong there. course I didn't though, and a serpent mage eventually blocked our only path forward. These smaller snakes use 3 blades that cause bleed, and they fire lightning from across the room. While they are pretty strong, a mage definitely wasn't the body I wanted for the Iron Golem. Regardless, killing him had now forced us to play as him, which was definitely a downgrade considering the upcoming boss fight. He did make the rest of the fortress look easy though. Eventually we got to the rooftop without killing anyone else, and that meant the mage got his shot at the golem. The Iron Golem has really high defense. His only weakness is balance, so if we could deal enough damage to his legs, then he'd eventually stagger, which gives you a free window while he's down. Things did not go according to plan. I wasn't able to avoid his wind blast, and I lost nearly half of my health before even getting to him. Good news was that I'd fit under him perfectly, and most of his swings just missed us. What's unique about Dark Souls is that it rewards large hits more than the few weaker ones because defense is pretty much applied to every attack. Because the sage deals most of his damage through multiple attacks, we are barely able to move his health bar. He's also immune to bleed, which sucks for a completely different reason, rendering the one strength that this guy has completely useless. It was time for another upgrade. After losing that fight, I didn't even bother trying again, and I decided to look for something built to deal one large hit. Luckily, we passed a large knight on the path above us. Grabbing him wasn't going to be easy though. My normal attacks did almost nothing to his armor, and the shield blocked anything that did manage to connect. The sage's mobility is really good though, so I was able to dodge his attacks and kill him. In the rematch against the Iron Golem, he opened with the same attack he usually does, but this time we had a shield. I charged him before he could attack again and started swinging at his ankle. His shield absorbed most of the Golem's smaller attacks, and the armor kept me standing whenever he did manage to land a hit. After a little bit of back and forth, the Golem was on the floor. Welcome to Anor Londo, home of gold, beauty, and the channel's namesake. To get the Lord Vessel and keep the run moving, I need to beat Ornstein and Smo next. Getting through the city as this night was easy enough. The place is huge and mostly empty, so I just weaved around the rare sentinel and the occasional lightning gargoyle. Our great shield made the rafters a joke too. Funny enough, enemies that fall off ledges don't count as my kills for the swap mod, so I just baited the painting guardians into falling and crossed without becoming one. I kept running past everything until I came across the infamous Silver Knight archers. Charging in blindly got me stuck between both of them. To keep arrows out of my back, I had no choice but to kill the Silver Knight in front of me. He's a decent enemy to control though, so I really didn't mind it. I walked around the cathedral like I owned the place because, well, I kind of do. Right up until I got ganked by 2 Royal Sentinels and another archer shooting from upstairs. There's an Obi-Wan high ground joke in there somewhere. I respawned at the bonfire, fairly annoyed, but that actually gave me an idea. I went back inside and baited a Royal Sentinel into a one-on-one at the far end of the cathedral. Those giants are very slow, but they do hit super hard, and that massive shield can absorb any attack that connects without making the Sentinel flinch. He is a literal wall. Despite his defenses, I used my superior AI to hit around his shield and take him down anyway, and the boss ahead hopefully couldn't do the same. Oh, and he can also heal, which is kind of insane. I opened the fight by baiting Ornstein into a corner and then hitting him twice with our halberd before Smo joined in. My guard drops every time I swing, so I wasn't invincible. One sneaky hit put me at half HP, and then I backed off to heal myself. Somehow, the shield still guards me while I'm healing, but I didn't turn far enough and I ended up getting hit anyway. Smo had gotten himself stuck behind a pillar though, so I burst Ornstein down before that gift ran out. Phase 2 against Super Smo was kind of dicey. The Sentinel has a long reach attack where he lowers his grip on the halberd, and I use that to poke Smo right through them. I actually get iframes on my back hop, and I use them to dodge a point blank charge, but the second one caught me off guard and nearly one-shot me. Not gonna lie, at this point I started to panic a little bit and then made enough distance to heal twice. When I went back in, I lived long enough to take the win. With Ornstein and Smo down, I entered the chamber to greet Guinevere, who must have been happy to finally see someone of her, well, of her size. With the Lord Vessel in hand, we now had 4 lords to kill. I decided to take on the Demon Ruins first. There's a boss fight there out in the open air, so that'd be a good match for us. The boss I'm thinking of is the Ceaseless Discharge, of course. I walked up to the remains of his sister, stole her clothes, which understandably pissed him off. Then I jogged back to the fog wall to set up the cheese. He followed me, and that was his last mistake. I tickled his fingernails until he lost the grip and then fell into the pit below. That went opened the upper demon ruins, where a gauntlet of 3 bosses was waiting for me. First though, the run needed an enemy who could actually fit through the ruins, so I killed the first Capra demon I came across. And I've been waiting to play as this guy for a while now. I didn't have my trusty dogs at my side, but I was still gonna do some damage. I wasn't entirely sure if he'd be able to hold up against the Demon Fire Sage, but I think he had a pretty good shot. He's decently fast, but if he flopped, then I had a backup plan anyway. The Capra's speed let me skip every enemy on the way and reach the Fire Sage's fog wall in record time. Once the fight started, I quickly realized Capra had a better chance than we thought, and the Fire Sage's main threat is the magic blast he creates with some of his attacks. Thankfully, I could outrun them without breaking a sweat. One of them did catch me though and hit me for half my HP, which, oh, it hurt like hell. Eventually, the Fire Sage started looping his slow flying body slams. Every time he came down, I closed the gap and then stuck close to him. I'm pretty sure this is what was making his AI just keep going for them. Either way, it was free damage, and once he realized his mistake, he tried to back hop away, but it was already too late. 1 Demon Ruins boss down and 2 to go. The Centipede Demon was our next target, and this fight is usually tedious. You get a tiny little strip of land to fight him on while he uses his gum pistol to harass you from across the map. For any other enemy, this fight would be a nightmare, but the Capra Demon is native to the ruins, so he's just immune to lava damage. Because of this, I was able to use the entire arena to my advantage, hitting the Centipede and then running across the lava away from his massive but very slow jump attacks. The fight ended up being a piece of cake, and the Centipede Demon fell in a couple of minutes. But 2 out of 3 down, Capra was still going strong, and all that was left was crossing the lava lake to Izalith and facing our first lord, the Bed of Chaos. Once again, our free lava walk made this trip a breeze. I was tempted to turn into one of the giant dragon asses for a joke, but I needed an enemy that could actually move through the ruins, so I'll have to save that for another run. Like the video if you want to see me play as a dragon ass. I was pretty confident Capra can handle the Bed of Chaos stage hazards, but if he turned out to be too tall for the tunnel, then I would try the statues next, as long as they were fast enough to actually drop onto the branch without getting swatted off. I reached and destroyed the first root without a problem, and going for the second, I barely avoided getting stuck between the branch slam and the crumbling floor. Once I was there, I charged straight at the Bed of Chaos, praying that the collapsed floor would drop me before the swing landed. Our timing was on point, and the Capra Demon was even small enough to fit into the tunnel. All that was left was landing the finishing blow, and the Capra Demon dies. Even though I'm actually allowed to respawn on these runs, that one still hurt. Thankfully, the branches don't reset after dying to the Bed of Chaos, which is the same as a normal playthrough, so I just made my way back and finished the fight for good. With 1 lord down, I made my way over to the catacombs next. There are 2 bosses that live down there. There's Pinwheel, who guards the catacombs, and then Gravelord Nito himself, who rules over the Tomb of Giants. Squeezing through the tight places of the catacombs as a Capra Demon just wasn't happening, so I turned into a skeleton warrior the first chance I got. There was one enemy in this area that I had to get, and you'll see exactly who that is when I get there. The problem is that the catacombs are run by a group of necromancers who keep every skeleton in the area reviving forever. Since they never actually die, I literally couldn't swap into a new one. I had no choice but to skip most of the catacombs with this speedrun jump and hope our little guy could take on the enemy I was looking for. Luckily, I dropped right above one and I found my bone wheel. These guys do not need an introduction. And after hopping down into Pinwheel's big coffin arena, the following footage was too disturbing to show on YouTube. I made my way through the Tomb of Giants in complete darkness. I really needed the bone wheel to pull this off because I could not think of another skeleton who'd be able to take on the Lord of Skeletons. Normally, the fact that he has so many trash mobs in his arena would be a good thing, but since they never actually die and they just keep reviving, I couldn't transform into them. The strategy looked good at first, right up until I saw the damage numbers. As it turns out, bone wheels rely on their victim getting staggered so they can stun lock them to death. The smaller skeletons weren't really a problem, but Nito himself completely ignored my attack, so I had to back up constantly to avoid getting one shot. Sometimes that meant accidentally waking the giant skeletons in the back, and other times I'd do pretty well and then get stuck on terrain. None of our attempts though got him below half health, and I realized I had to find another strategy. This sucked because I know you guys were excited to see the bone wheel put in work, especially since he didn't really do too well in my unfair enemy playthrough. Unfortunately, this was a bad matchup, so I had to figure something else out. The enemy I wanted to get was a skeletal beast, but the bone wheel skeleton couldn't even kill one of them, so I went back and grabbed one of the lesser pinwheels in front of Nito's arena, and with him I kited a beast all the way back into the open and bursted it down with magic. Now it was time for payback. Now compared to Nito, the skeletal beast has really low HP, but it does have passive poise and ridiculous damage on its combos, which is why I featured it in that unfair enemies video. I kept killing the smaller skeletons whenever they got back up, and then used our jump attack to reposition anytime I got cornered. I made sure to stay away from the giant skeletons in the back at all costs, and piece by piece, eventually the damage started to add up. Nito went down, and we were now the new Skeleton Lord. With 2 out of the 4 Lord Souls obtained, the Duke's archives were up next. Seath the Scaleless was waiting at the bottom of his crystal cave. This area is packed with powerful enemies, which gave us plenty of options, but problem is that most of them deal magic damage, and Seath is a magic dragon. As soon as I entered the archives, I baited the armored boar into charging me, and then barely dodged him with my backstep. As he tethered back to his spawn, I killed him, and now we were playing as a boar. My plan with this guy was really simple. I wanted to rush through the archives without fighting anyone, but it turns out my running animation actually has an active hitbox, and I accidentally hit a crystal hollow on the way through. The boar happened to one-shot him, and then I instantly transformed into him, and I had to kiss the boar goodbye. I made it up to the elevator, kited the crystal knight out of the corridor so I could get past, and then greeted Seath. Despite looking identical to one of his henchmen, he sent me to jail. Unlike a regular run though, I didn't need to bother with the key because I just killed the guard on the outside and then transformed into him. That was pretty cool. I ended up turning back into a crystal hollow though because it was easier to move around. Then I spun the rotating staircases around, solved the puzzle, and pushed through. A channeler did one-shot me, which was kind of rude, and when I respawned, I climbed all the way back up, and then he teleported away. Out in the Duke's Gardens, I still needed an enemy that could actually beat Seath. I ended up settling on one of the golden crystal golem mini bosses in the crystal cave. These walking tanks have huge health, and I'm pretty sure they have pretty good magic resistance too. They hit for some massive physical damage though, which goes right past Seath's magic resistance, which sounds great on paper until you realize I have to actually kill one first. Now, the crystal hollow stood no chance on that narrow ledge, but the lesser crystal golems might. I ended up pulling one in the gardens and used the open space to run circles around him, dodging his attacks and punishing every recovery with my gap closers. Now that I was actually piloting a crystal golem, I went for the rematch, and it went slightly better. I could actually tank a few hits, but he still beat me on stats alone, so I just hid in a corner for some extra hits while his pathfinding struggled to catch on. Armed with this crystal enemy, I walked right up to Seath and punched him in his crystal face. The regular golems couldn't have pulled this off, but the golden one is just built different. Now it was time for the final Lord Soul. The 4 kings were our last boss fight before Gwyn himself. This fight is purely a damage race, but there is another thing you have to keep in mind. Technically, you need the ability to walk the abyss, which normally means killing Sif for the Covenant of Artorias, but not in this run. Instead, the plan was draining the water and then killing a Dark Raid. They can actually walk the abyss by default, and they carry a magic shield. If that shield could block the 4 kings' attacks, then I lived long enough to pass the DPS check. I got the key from Ingward, went down into the lower ruins, and became a Dark Wraith fairly easily. From there, I ran through the ruins, killing my own kind and transforming into them so I could refresh my health. When the fight started, I rushed the first king the second he rose and blocked his opening swing. The first chance I got, I used his 4-hit combo, which is one of the highest combos in the entire game. I hate when these guys use this attack on me. Then I took a few hits without guarding, but I knew that as long as I stood close to them, then the handle of their blade would only chip me. The second king kept breaking my guard though, which put me behind in the damage race, so I stopped guarding altogether and just went in before all the multiple kings could stack up. The third king opened with a pretty rare magic attack, but the projectiles don't actually track and I just ran past them. Then he dropped a magic blast right in front of me, and I turned around to block it since it would have landed behind my guard and instantly killed me. From there, I cleaned up the rest of his health bar without much trouble. Now that all 4 Lord Souls were collected, the kiln was open, and so was the road to the final boss. All that stood in the way was the gauntlet of Black Knights and Gwyn at the end of it. This was actually perfect since those same Black Knights were the perfect vessel to take on Gwyn. And despite being slightly outmatched, the Dark Wraith actually held his own. After beating the first knight, I turned into him and then beat the Greatsword Black Knight, and the plan was to actually use him on Gwyn. The only thing I was worried about was having to kill the other Black Knights along the way. Luckily, the second Sword Black Knight fell off the walkway mid-fight, which doesn't count as my kill, so I didn't turn into him. Then I baited the Great Axe Knight into jumping off too, as per tradition, and the path to Gwyn was clear. My strategy for this fight was simple. With the Ultra Great Sword, I could break his poise as much as possible. Guarding his opening jump was a bad idea though. I got instantly guard broken myself, and then hit twice while I was trying to jump away. I did land 2 poise breaks back to back, and eventually got him under half HP. At this point, I was starting to get the hang of the iframe timing on the back hops, but the early damage eventually caught up to me, and Gwyn finished me off. That's when I went in for the rematch. I dodged the opening jump perfectly, which let me connect 4 hits back to back, breaking Gwyn's poise twice before he could even swing. He returned the favor though, and refused to go down without a fight. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, then like the video and check out this playlist if you want to see me beat Dark Souls as every enemy.
Bye-bye.